What's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes, and we are here for the first episode of the Scope Buff SportsCast. And I'm joined by
Harrison Simeon, and we just watched Colorado shock the world against TCU, winning 45-42. It was a barn burner of a game. Let's just get right into it.
You summed that up perfectly. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. All the players that played really well. We had 4 players with over 100 receiving yards. Dylan Edwards had 4 touchdowns. Shedeur Sanders broke the school record for passing yards with 510 passing yards. From top to bottom, this was a solid football performance. Solid football team. I don't really
this was probably the best, easily the best game of Colorado football that we've seen in years, and the most entertaining in recent memory. And you even forgot to mention the guy who probably broke the game, turned it on its head, Travis Hunter. He was unreal. And we'll get into him. We'll get to everybody. We'll go player by player, and we'll evaluate how what the team did really well, since obviously we had no idea really what to expect coming into today, and that really paid off to our benefit. Because you saw TCU really look like they were, they stayed in it the entire time. TCU's a great team, but they looked kind of shaky, and especially in the first half, like they were just caught off guard by a lot of different stuff we were trying to do.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. Starting with the first drive of the game, it was a 3-and-out, if I remember correctly, and then CU came back right down the field, stormed down the field, and scored a touchdown with the Dylan Edwards 4-yard pass from Shedeur for that touchdown. And so from the beginning of the game, CU had caught TCU off guard, and it really seemed like CU almost intimidated them in a way. They had all the momentum, all the pressure, not the pressure, but just all the just hype around them, and all the just intensity that TCU didn't seem to have. No one's talking about TCU other than the fact that they were in the national championship last year. No one was talking about Chandler Morris. No one's talking about Jared Wiley. No one's talking about Bailey, I forget his first name, the running back, who had a ton of yards against CU. And so I think just in that aspect, TCU was kind of an underdog, even though Colorado came out as negative 20.5 point underdogs. So
yeah, that cover was pretty easy money in our opinion, because even coming to this game, you saw all the talent that we were able to acquire, and it was just like, okay, they're talented. They're all from different schools. It's like 70 new guys, 57 people left. How is it really all going to fit together? And for the most part, especially offensively, they look pretty sound. They look like they had been together for more than just a couple months. And Shedeur looked, we'll get into Shedeur specifically, but he just looks like the best Colorado quarterback we may ever see, at least talent-wise, and he showed off a lot of intelligence, and he just looked like a franchise quarterback, for college,
Yeah, no, I get you. I get what you mean. With every throw that he had, the accuracy was there. It was really impressive. I can't remember a specific quarterback performance like that where I felt like every ball, short and deep, was on the money. There was maybe less than 5 throws that I thought that he missed. And he made throws on the run. He made throws down the sideline towards the middle of the field, jump balls. Even on short passes, just on the back corner fade to Travis Hunter, that was a heck of a catch. Unfortunately it didn't count, but even on that throw, that's right there on the money for him to go up and get that ball. And so, like you said, we'll get into Shedeur later, but yeah, just a really sound performance from him. And he was there the whole way, and you could lean on him as well as Travis and all the other offensive players that leaned into that, and even the defense down the stretch.
Oh yeah, that last defensive stop was incredibly crucial, and just because you saw that it felt like one of those games where the last team to have the ball was going to win, and then it just didn't end up following that kind of stereotype, and it became just this absolutely historic win. For the program. It was the first Power 5 team to win a season opener as a 20-plus point underdog since 1997, which is kind of insane if you think about it, because there have been some pretty crappy Power 5 teams. You would have thought one of the years they would have pulled an upset, but I mean, it's just like I'm at a loss for words sometimes, especially watching that game. I mean, we're about 45 minutes removed from the end of the game, and kind of came down from that crazy high we had like watching the end. And I mean, this was a team projected to win 3 games, and the fact they were able to win the first game against a ranked opponent going to next week, it'll obviously be a lot of a different battle against Nebraska and other teams down the line but TCU is a team we're going to start playing every year now, or pretty much every year, with the move to the Big 12 next year. So I was just really impressive, and a team we can match up well against, a team we can put up a ton of points. Like, we scored 45, and last year I can't even remember a time we scored more than 20. So
yeah,
the offense looked way more sound. Yeah, I think just if we can continue that, obviously they're going to be better defensive teams to be played. They're going to get more film on us. I'd really like the play calling for the most part, kind of using a lot of short passing, inside zone runs, which the run game, work in progress, running back by committee. But I think, Dylan Edwards especially is a special player. And he's a freshman, so he's going to be around for a little while. And he's going to be a player that, you can watch film on him, but he's still going to break your ankles.
Yeah, no, I feel you with that. You made a lot of great points. Just as a whole, talking about the defense, talking about the team, the underdogs, Dylan Edwards to wrap it up. I guess let's go more into the underdog factor of it. I mean, it's really, like you said, it's really impressive that it's been so long, 26 years since the last team that was a 20 or more point underdog in the Power 5 to get that upset. That's really crazy to start. But it really surprised me that they went for that line, and that a lot of people predicted TCU to honestly win this game very easily. That's what a lot of people thought. Even a lot of CU students thought that. And I just thought that was odd because I talked about this in the preview that me and Milena did. Checked on the YouTube. But we've known nothing about this team, and this team has a lot of stars, a lot of studs, a lot of talent. You didn't really know how kind of the glue was going to come together, how the lines, the D-line, O-line was going to come together. And so I thought in that aspect it was weird to kind of underrate this team, even though from the few people that had come and seen practices, like Urban Meyer, Michael Irvin, they were saying that this is a good squad, a talented team, and a lot of people kind of, I don't know, didn't really accept it. They didn't really buy the hype. And
yeah, I mean, sometimes you can understand that when there's that much of it, like, because if you're so much of something, there's obviously going to be contrarians and like people that are just like, oh, it's all talk, it's all, it's Deion Sanders. He's a football player known for talking a lot, but he was also known for backing it up. And so it's just like the fact that so many people were against us and like doubting, it was a lot of Nebraska fans. I remember saying back last year that we had a long summer of annoying Nebraska fans ahead of us, and that's all going to come to a head next week. But I think I saw someone call us the worst roster in college football. Someone with Yahoo Sports. I can't say the name that I can remember, but I just remember seeing so much doubt that kind of translated into just kind of that line. And I thought 20 was reasonable just because we were 1-11 last year. If you're basing it off of just like last year and what we have seen, this was a 1-11 program, and the program we played against again wasn't talked about too much because they lost maybe their key contributors offensively, but it was the team that made the national championship, and who cares that they got blown out by Georgia? Like, they made it, and they were there for a reason, and they deserved to be there. And this, like, it's a really, really good team in a Power 5 conference that we're about to join. But we did it, and like it took a lot of effort, and I just feel like we were the team that kind of wanted it more overall. Yeah, we wanted to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. And for the 20-point underdogs, we had this past history, but you look at it, we had 51 transfers. We had a complete roster turnover. Only 3 guys returning from last year. The whole coaching staff is new. It was honestly kind of odd how much, like, the broadcast, how much media kept bringing up last year, because really the only reason to bring it up is to just talk about what Deion Sanders and the players and coaching staff have done for this program. Because last year, honestly, it doesn't matter. That is no influence on what happened. That was on what's going to happen this year. What happened in this game, and honestly, I think Deion made the right decision with some of the players he kept, at least so far. I mean, you look at Trevor Woods. He had the interception in the end zone in the first quarter, I believe it was, and yeah, no, that was huge. For Trevor Woods, but I mean, yeah, from last year there was basically virtually no returning players, and so to really judge him off of last year at all was kind of odd to me. But yeah, so anyway, I think we can move on from that. I don't know. Let's talk about the game a little bit more. I guess let's talk about that first quarter. What were your takeaways? Just right at the beginning of the game, when everything started getting.
Well, the first quarter was, I thought, was really, really promising. Even the lesser parts of it when we allowed the touchdown and stuff like that. Something I was really nervous about coming into the game was offensive line, and a lot of people were worried about it because none of those big time transfers were offensive linemen, and especially in that kind of position, you need months and months and months as a unit to kind of congeal and really cooperate to protect one person. You have all one common goal, and you need a certain type of mentality to have, to really congeal as an offensive line. But I really loved what I saw from the offensive line. In the run game, it was a little bit hit or miss, but in the pass game, I thought they did a great job of giving Shedeur time to throw. They threw some really crucial blocks. I saw, even without, we had an injury, I believe, to one of our O-linemen. It was...
Yeah, I think it was BB.
Yeah, BB. He was supposed to start left guard, but we had a backup left guard in there, and, we gave up, maybe 2 sacks, 3 sacks?
Yeah, it was something like that. And they were at crucial times. There were some crucial points where the O-line messed up with false starts and, giving up some sacks. But for the most part, they played a really solid game. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was just going to mention that I thought the best part was that offensive line helped set the tone. And it, our first drive, we just drove right down, scored, went quick, used a lot of, pace. Both us and TCU did. But I really liked how we're able to kind of really just get TCU on their back foot immediately and just really stick it to them,
Yeah, no, I thought so too, and it was really it was interesting to see how CU would respond, or how TCU would respond. I mean, we knew that they would respond well. It wasn't surprising that they kind of had a response for every single punch that CU threw, but it was interesting to see CU and how they would respond down the stretch of the game, because those first few drives were promising. That first drive was especially promising. I mean, they just marched down the field, and you could tell that they were coached really well. There was a first down that looked to be pretty close on a third down conversion. It was close to the marker, and they got to the line, hurried up, and then snapped the ball so that they couldn't review it. And they also got TCU sleeping because they had a late substitution, got a flag, and got some extra yards out of that. And so even in that first drive, there were little things that you saw that were interesting, that stood out. But still, there was kind of that little thought in the back of your mind of, we haven't seen anything from this team, neither has TCU. They're really kind of just trying to find different puzzle pieces almost, and looking at different coaches' film and different players' film from different schools and whatnot, and piecing them together to try and figure out what's going to happen. So I honestly was worried if this was going to hold up for the rest of the game, and it seemed to do so, especially on the offensive end. TCU seemed to have no answers, and I was wondering kind of what you thought as the game progressed and CU continued to deliver on the offensive end.
Yeah, it kind of felt, at least for the first, 3 quarters or so, especially in the third quarter, you kind of were waiting for us to unravel, just because it didn't really even make sense that we were playing as good as we were, and that the offense was functioning as well as it did compared to last year. But, it kind of just took some time for people to just kind of forget last year, and obviously after today, no one's ever going to remember that 1-11 team. But I think the most important part about that early stretch of the game was we were able to get, was it 7 or 8 penalties from TCU?
Yeah.
We were really able to kind of frustrate them, kind of, mentally rushed them, and it kind of translated into us getting more points. And there were some breaks we caught. We got like a roughing the passer in a crucial spot. But it really felt like we scored like a casual 45 because we scored 45, but there were some missed opportunities.
Yeah, no, I thought so for sure. I mean, you definitely look at that Dylan Edwards fumble, and that kind of brings up a point that I kind of wanted to head into anyways, because you look at that. So CU, they get that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just looking through my notes to try and get caught up exactly. But yeah, CU gets a 2-yard run, and they score on their third drive of the game, about midway through the second quarter. TCU has to punt. CU then has a false start, has a long third down, has to punt, and TCU gets the ball back with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter, and they know that CU is going to get the ball back, and the defense comes up, has a huge stand. CU gets the ball with just over 3 minutes left. Edwards gets tackled, and right before his knee or elbow hits the ground, he fumbles the ball, and TCU is able to capitalize on that and score and top the game before the field goal. And there's honestly just so much that happened in there, and we can kind of dissect that. So I guess let's start with that defensive stand right before the fumble and kind of just talk about that a little bit and how huge that was, even though it was kind of spoiled.
But yeah, there were some points where the defense and special teams like finally looked good, and like, oh my god, like this would seem like the weakness of the team during most of the game, but when they finally did happen, something like would go wrong. Like that really good punt that went like a coffin corner, went down on the 1 yard line. Maybe it was like, oh, we're gonna just stuff them there, maybe we get a safety, but then Imani Bailey just breaks out for like a 74-yard run, and they score real quick. Like TCU did a great job of responding, but we did a great job of responding to those responses. Like it was really, really back and forth, especially in the second half. But in that early stretch, I think the defense did a really good job of just like really stepping up when it mattered, like locking in when it mattered. Obviously, Travis Hunter was probably exhausted playing corner, but he did a great job. Marion Cooper, I thought, did a really good job today. Shedeur Sanders led the team in total tackles, or was tied for it with I forget who it was.
With Marvin Ham.
Marvin Ham, and yeah, I liked how Marvin Ham looked. I liked how Levante Bentley looked, but kind of that the defense definitely is a work in progress, and Coach Prime said it after the game that there's a lot of things to take care of defensively and on special teams. There's a missed field goal. There's some bad kickoffs. But I mean, other than that, like just the fact that we have a legit offense with like a amazing quarterback to wide receiver connection, and that wide receiver is our number one corner, and I don't even think Cormani McLean played.
No, I don't remember seeing him. Or at least getting mentioned.
There was no Cormani McLean, so it's like there's still more to come. Like I think the secondary looked a bit, like they allowed a lot of the underneath, like the shallow crosses, stuff across the middle, kind of those intermediate routes. But they did a pretty good job of strapping up like the top and keeping the top on the defense. Travis Hunter has great recovery speed. I really liked Marion Cooper. He had a big deep pass that he broke up. So I think overall, I mean, there's things the defense did well that they can build on, but there's a lot that I feel like could be improved on, like the pass rush, pretty much non-existent. I can't remember a single sack. There was a time, that I just went, we did not have a single sack. Yeah. So I think there's a lot that the secondary can do to help out that defensive line to kind of get those coverage sacks. But the secondary, I think, was the unit that I saw had some trouble communicating at times, especially as the game wore on. Travis got tired. Everyone else got tired. The linebackers maybe weren't assigning players quite right, but I mean, it didn't really end up mattering just because of how prolific the offense was today.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. I mean, it was really crazy how well the offensive flow, like, it worked together smoothly. It flowed well. And, yeah, and even though, like, there was some of those issues on defense, as you mentioned, they stepped up when it mattered. I'd mentioned that end of the first half, they had that huge stop before the fumble. And even though that was spoiled, that was still big. I thought that showed some character. They obviously had that big stop at the end of the game. And they were, I mean, they showed some promise from the beginning. I guess one thing that I want to talk about was in the second half, the defense was really kind of falling apart. There wasn't anyone to really rely on. TCU was running the ball down their throats. You brought up Amani Bailey. He had 164 yards on 14 attempts. Trey Sanders had 46 yards on 15 attempts. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns is big. Like, he was their short yardage back. He did a really good job of it.
Yeah. And so the running game was there for TCU. CU couldn't really stop it. But anyway, when we're in that second half and we're sitting on the couch, we're watching the TV, we're seeing TCU score, we're seeing CU score, they're going back and forth. And it's not field goals either. There was only one field goal to end the that was at the end of the first half.
It was at the very end of the first half.
And so it was just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, a long run by Dylan Edwards, a long catch and run by Dylan Edwards. They had that long kick return, another long run by Amani Bailey that you mentioned earlier. What were you thinking when you were seeing TCU and Colorado go blow for blow, and you just had to see if CU was going to respond to that?
I mean, I kind of just had to take it in because, I mean, the offense looked great, but I always had this in the back of my head that TCU was going to figure something out, and Shedeur was going to make a mistake. But I mean, we could talk about Shedeur specifically after this. Like, he was pretty much flawless. Like, all his ball placements were either, your guy's going to catch it or it's incomplete. Like, there weren't any dumb throws I saw. There weren't any balls that I thought could have been picked. He didn't really, there were a few times where when he was scrambling, especially early, where he kind of, I remember there was one where he went out of bounds and then it lost him some yards and ended up resulting in like a blocked field goal. But that's little stuff like that can be worked on, just like by throwing the ball away and stuff like that. But I just really thought Shedeur was like the great equalizer of the game. Like, every time TCU would do something, Shedeur wouldn't be rattled. He wouldn't try to do too much. He would just follow the playbook. He would do a great job of rolling out, creating stuff out of really nothing. There were times where he would roll out and like, okay, he's just going to throw it away. Oh, he's going to take a sack, whatever. And he ended up making a throw that set us up well. Like, I think he used his weapons very well. Obviously, there were a lot of swings and flat routes and slants and stuff. And he kind of put the positions, especially guys like Weaver, Horn, Edwards, in positions where they could run after the catch and kind of use those run-pass options, found little creases for guys like Horn and Weaver that could break ankles, that are really shifty, that are super athletic, to do their thing, and then hit Travis on those more, you can just screw it, Travis up there somewhere. Like, he can really bring in those catches. Obviously, there were some balls that could have been caught by him but didn't end up being, whether it was the one that got called back. There was one where it was diving and it was like a beautifully placed ball, but he just dropped it at the end from hitting the ground. And I think the most promising part of this game for me was Shedeur. And I think that's what really kept us from going back and forth, because he just didn't really make too many mistakes.
Yeah, I thought that I wanted to kind of segue into talking about him, and you kind of just did that anyways. But yeah, me personally, I brought this up earlier. I thought his accuracy was very impressive. He had a heck of a game. 38 completions on 47 attempts, 510 yards, 4 TDs, 0 interceptions, 200.1 pass rate.
Yeah, 200 pass rate is crazy.
I mean, the eye-popping factor is just off the charts.
It's not just an eye-popping factor. Like, he wrote his name in the history books. In this team debut, he set the record for the most passing yards in Colorado history.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, obviously it's not going to be like that every game. But just the fact that he did that immediately from the jump. Like, he didn't even need time to settle in. Yeah. Travis was as advertised. Like, he had an amazing pick. He had that almost touchdown catch, but he had 119 receiving yards and 11 catches, including a huge third and long conversion when you had to have it. Shedeur to Travis Hunter, and then that was immediately followed up by a beautiful route by Jimmy Horn, who scored. Pretty sure it was the last touchdown to take the lead.
Yeah, it was something like that. But yeah, no, all across the board. I mean, CU showed up and showed what they're made of. I mean, all that talk that they talked in the off season, before the game, even during the game, like Deion Sanders going into halftime, he was talking that talk, especially about Travis Hunter calling him and stuff. I mean, I thought that was definitely the most impressive thing, and I thought that stood out with the team in general, but I mean specifically Shedeur. I talked about this in the preview, but I mean, like, you're Deion Sanders, kid. You've been in the spotlight your whole life. You kind of know what to expect, and you also have his DNA in your body. So I mean, that was probably the second most impressive thing behind the accuracy. The accuracy was just absolutely astounding to me.
Yeah.
And overall, I thought he was smart. Besides, that one play that you mentioned, where he ran out of bounds. I thought he could have thrown that away. That resulted in like the blocked field goal. But besides that was really the only blemish that I thought, outside of maybe a missed throw here and there. But I mean, you look at his completion to attempts ratio, and you can think of 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 drops.
Yeah, I mean, there were times where he, like, that completion percentage, even though it's like 80%, is still kind of misleading, because there were times where the ball should have been caught. Like, it was either Jimmy or even Travis early on. Yeah,
and I mean, Travis had two amazing catches that were both just barely out of bounds. So that's 2 of those. I actually don't know if illegal contact or illegal touching counts as a incompletion or not because it's a flag, but I mean, there was that one where I want to say it was Weaver was wide open and he just barely stepped out of bounds, and that was called back. So there were a lot of opportunities that were missed that weren't Shedeur's fault. I mean, there was probably only you can probably count on one hand how many incompletions were necessarily his fault. He basically played a perfect game in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, there was also another part with Weaver where he stepped like a yard short of the first down, like where he could have gotten it, but he stepped a yard short and we went out of bounds. I think there ended up being maybe a flag on us and then a sack, and then it kind of killed our momentum in that drive. So the fact that we were able to put up 45, able to score 6 easy touchdowns, and I did mention that Jimmy Horn, when it wasn't the go-ahead, it was the Dylan Edwards' 4th touchdown. Like, there was so much happening that you kind of even you forget these little like amazing things that happen, but because there was so much other amazing stuff that happened. Like, we haven't even really seen all of Deion's quotes from after that we could go through. We could, we haven't really like watched back the game at all, like to really look into the nitty gritty of stuff on like how the offense runs their plays, how the defense runs their plays. But this is just like off the dome, like right after like the game just ended less than an hour ago. So
initial reaction type stuff.
Yeah, and I think we should probably just dedicate a good chunk of this to Travis Hunter, because I don't think we're showing him enough love.
Yeah, no, because that's exactly where I wanted to go next. I mean, you look at the offensive side of things. 119 yards on let's see, how many catches?
7, I think. Or was it 11?
Yeah, 11 catches for 119 yards on 16 targets. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Almost 11 yards per catch. It seemed like every time that Colorado needed a first down, someone to look to, he was getting the ball. And he even had a few drops. And those 2 catches that we mentioned earlier that were just barely out of bounds. I mean, offensively, he shined. So I guess let's talk about that, and then we can talk about the defensive side of things, because, I mean, that's just a whole nother star in itself. The fact that he can basically be 2 superstars is absolutely insane.
Right,
I mean,
the fact that he
Shohei Ohtani a run for his money.
Right, like I very much feel like he could easily win the Heisman if he just keeps doing what he's doing now. Obviously, teams are gonna game plan, but it's not really like how are you gonna game plan against the guy that's like, okay, well he's playing corner and he's really good at that. He had one of the most athletic interceptions I've ever seen. Like, what are you gonna do about that? Like, what are you gonna do about the fact that he's a super physical, like, I don't even, do you have like an NFL comparison, like his receiving style? Like, I don't even know.
I mean, honestly, it's really hard because, I mean, today, like it was weird because he had those few drops, which seemed uncharacteristic, but I mean, just the sheer athleticism on some of those plays was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm really just stuck on like the 2 catches that he made that didn't count. Yeah. Those 2 just absolutely insane.
I thought of one just because I feel like he kind of moved like, maybe not as good of a route runner or maybe not as elite after the catch, but this is just like an NFL comparison, like a Jamar Chase. That's kind of what I saw today. Because, I mean, Jamar is an amazing receiver in his own right, like one of the best in the NFL. But, he kind of shares a lot of those same traits as Travis, the guy that can just go up and get it. And Shedeur almost gives me like a Joe Burrow feel, like almost like that, but with more wheels. Like,
that dynamic is kind of there in a way.
Yeah, like the fact that we have that connection it can carry NFL teams, it can carry college teams just as well. Like you see, like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Like you saw, like in the past, you've been like, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. I don't want to compare it that soon. It's been one game, but those quarterback wide receiver connections can really make a difference for your team.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Travis was just amazing, and it seemed like Shedeur, he had a chemistry with every. I mean, he had to have chemistry to throw for 510 yards on the completion percentage that he did. Yes. Get 4 guys with over 100 yards receiving. But yeah, no, I guess. Yeah, offensively, actually not offensively. Let's just go into the defensive side of things for Travis. Sure. What did you notice specifically that stood out to you?
For Travis?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed he did get beat a few times. There was like an early back shoulder catch that he wasn't able to adjust to. I mean, that'll happen to every great corner. But, I mean, the fact that I just can't get that interception, the clip of that interception out of my head. The fact that he was able to stretch like that, read the slant flat combo so easily, like just knowing it was coming, it was unreal. And his athletic ability and just like his quickness, like he'll take away an entire side of the field like Deion did, if that kind of stuff can continue. Obviously I think Deion, a former cornerback, being a coach, is going to attract all those great corners to come help him out. And I think once he gets Carmona McClain on the other side, you could see even more improvement. And maybe once you see that pass rush to continue to get better, you could see even more. Like I could see Heisman in his very near future, just even based off his defensive ability. Like you take away the fact that he's a great receiver, he's still, would be a top corner on pretty much any team in the country.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, offensively, defensively, he'd be the top of his position, and the fact that he's able to do that on both sides of the ball is absolutely insane. I was kind of wondering, like, if you had to pick one play from today that Travis made, which one do you think would you choose that kind of stood above all, I guess?
Well, it was the pick. I did mention that before, but I guess besides that, I'd say it was that really, really important, I think it was like a 40-something yard throw from Shedeur to Travis. It was one of those plays where game on the line, what are you going to do? Best player to best player. It was a great play call. It was a tough, really, really tough catch. Obviously, I could say the touchdown that didn't count was like the craziest, like on his head kind of catch ever. But I guess since it didn't count technically, because of the control of his hand or his foot was on the ground, I don't know. But anyway, like since that doesn't count, I'd go with that big catch. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean that TD catch really stands out to me. I mean, he rose up and just he embarrassed that corner, that defensive back, that poor defensive back. He embarrassed that man, and I mean it was unfortunate that didn't count. But I mean, we also forgot to mention. There was pass interference on that play, and even the defensive back forgot that. He was jumping around all hyped that insane catch didn't count, and he forgot that he had committed pass interference.
That was so funny. He was like, "Oh yeah, it's incomplete. I did it, guys." And then he realized, "Oh wait, they're at the 1 yard line still."
Yeah. So yeah, no, there was that, and so that catch was insane. I mean, you look at the other catch that he had down the sideline. I mean, he kind of had to reach out. It was basically horizontal to the ground, reaching out, trying to keep his toes in, and he still caught the ball. He had to bobble. He bobbled a little before he caught it. But I mean, if you saw that in the open field, you're saying, "Wow, that's a hell of a catch right there." Yeah. And you can just see the way that he's able to move and kind of contort his body, and especially you see that with the interception. And some of his pass breakups. There was one that was in the first half. Chandler Morris went. It was probably a 20-yard pass out there. I forget exactly the route. The receiver made a nice diving catch and then ended up dropping it after he hit the ground. But before he hit the ground, Travis had a hand in there diving back after he had already gotten beat. And so there's just plays like that where it's honestly things that like you can't teach that. It's just pure athleticism.
It's just effort.
Yeah,
I think it's effort too, because he could have given up on that play and the guy makes an amazing highlight touchdown, changes the complexion of the game completely. But the effort's there on both sides of the ball. I mean, he must be really gassed right now, but I saw his Instagram live. He was jumping around, bumping some music, and Deion said they have a hot tub ready for him in the plane home. But they might have the Heisman waiting for him in his near future too, because I just feel like he's just like the perfect receiver from what I saw today. Like his catch radius are amazing. I think the only thing to improve on a little bit are just his hands. And that's something that Jamar Chase, like the guy I brought up earlier, that's something he struggled with early in his career. He had some drops, and everyone's like, "Oh, he might suck," but then he ended up becoming the top 3 receiver in the league. So I think the fact that he has so many great traits of a wide receiver, the effort that you'd want in, like that any coach would want in any player in any position, and he can play corner too and lock down people is
Because I feel like that's a really underrated part of his game is his maturity. You see him in press conferences and everyone kind of thinks of him as a flashy kind of cocky guy, especially because of his YouTube, his social media presence, kind of just who he is as a person. But that all comes with love and it all comes with respect. And you see his answers at the podium during press conferences, on Instagram Lives. He was on Bleacher Report recently talking about the comments of the Oregon coach. Like, "Oh, Colorado hasn't won anything," and you know what Travis said to that? "Oh yeah, you're right. So we're gonna go try and prove that we're a new team, And so that maturity, that hustle, I mean, those are some of the worries that you have with some of these star guys, and Travis has that. And I mean, I talked about some of those things that you can't teach, but all this stuff that you can teach. I mean, it seems like he has it, and you look at his brain, his football IQ. I mean, that play recognition on that interception was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you look at his athleticism, you can attribute that for his catches, his pass breakups, and all that stuff. Yeah. But I mean, it really just comes down to being able to read the ball. I mean, he reads the ball in the air really well. He always seems to be the first one to get a hand on it. It seems like even if he's not, like I mentioned earlier, he's able to get a hand on the ball after the receiver has already reeled in or touched it. And so, I mean, he's just an absolutely phenomenal player. I mean, there's really no weaknesses for him. It's really just about if he can continue this level of play with as many snaps as he's getting every single game, and hopefully that would be a lot easier when he's not playing in 100-degree heat or whatever it was, or 90. I mean,
I'm really excited. I'm gonna be on the sidelines on the field, working with Fox Sports for next week's game against Nebraska. I really hope I end up on our sideline just to see how he interacts with the team and just celebrates, because he's gonna make some great plays. He's just a playmaker in any sense of that word, both offensively and defensively. He has the quickness, smarts, and anything you want in a player. You can't say enough good things about what we saw from him today and just his potential for the future.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I mean, yeah, he really has me at a loss for words, and you can say at the same time also being like, I can't shut up about this guy because there's so much about him that is so promising. I mean, he has traits that are his third and fourth, fifth best traits you could see in a guy and be like, wow, like that stands out to me, and just that aspect is crazy. When you look at him as an athlete and you just think about the fact that he's only a sophomore and that he's only going to get better. Of course, going to have at least one more year at Colorado, and it would be insane for him to not have 2 more years after this one. I mean, we'll have to see how everything pans out, of course, but
I mean, he'll be a top. Yeah. He could very well be a first-round pick.
Yeah,
very soon.
I mean, if he plays like this, I mean, him and Shedeur could be fighting for that number 1 overall pick. So,
hey, but I mean, he's gonna get enough NIL money. That's he'll do his thing.
Yeah. So I guess let's go to kind of. I mean, there were a lot of bright spots on the offense. I mean, you look at Jimmy Horn Jr., you look at Xavier Weaver. We'll talk about them in a second. Kind of with the rest of the team. But the last kind of player that stood out to me was Dylan Edwards. He had 5 catches for 135 yards. I mean, he reeled in every single target. All the play calls for him were amazing.
He was so good.
He had that 75-yard completion. You look at him running the ball. He had 6 carries for only 24 yards.
Yeah, I think.
But got in the end zone. So yeah, I'll just kind of let you elaborate on him a little bit.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of kind of figuring out how they were really going to use them within the game, and maybe it'll go game by game basis. Maybe they'll he'll get more than 6 carries next time. But I liked how they did the running back by committee thing. I didn't see Alton McCaskill out there. He was the recent transfer from Houston, but I know he's on the team. I would imagine he gets some carries sooner or later. Maybe he's just not as he's a newer player than the other running backs. But I thought they did a good job of having Wilkerson kind of go in the short game, and Edwards really used in the passing game, which was what they what got him 4 touchdowns. Was they got him in space, they got him on screens and swing routes, and he just has I just saw all of the speed kills, all the speed analogies on that touchdown, especially the 75-yarder. It was just he can juke for days. He has all the, he's in the prime of his legs. His legs will just carry him as far as possible. And I think he's going to be kind of I hate to say that the guy who had 4 touchdowns is going to be the X factor, but I think he'll be the X factor of the offense if they can continue to score this much.
Yeah, no, I think he will be, because he'll definitely open up that short game a ton. Because when you have guys like Jimmy Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter that are going to be deep threats, and you look at Xavier Weaver, he had 6 catches for 118 yards. I mean, there's honestly X factors all over the field for the Buffs, and so when you have those deep threats, all those guys that can get you first downs, reel in some touchdowns, it's great to have that short game. And Dylan Edwards, Shedeur found him in the flats on dump down passes, and Edwards was able to make use out of that, and with him being and with just so much talent at the skill positions on this team, I mean, Deion and the offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, they drew up some great plays to get Edwards wide open, and they utilized him really well. And then you brought up I'm kind of getting lost in my notes here. You brought up Sivion Wilkerson, and how he was used more in the rushing game a little bit. He had 13 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. I think Dylan Edwards is just gonna be something special, especially when it comes to passing and throwing the ball.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think the most happy that's why I was especially happy that the offensive line played way better than expected, because it kind of allowed Shedeur to have that time. Edwards to get the space he needed, and it allowed all those skill positions to express their talent on the field and get those big plays. It all starts with the line. Line play was the biggest concern about this team, and while the defensive line didn't really make too much of an impact, I thought the offensive line really impressed. I was really impressed.
I thought so too.
Yeah. And the play calling was I also like that a lot, with kind of just keeping things safe, but also taking those shots when need be. And they were able to connect on some. I was really impressed with Weaver and Horn. Horn's route running, I think, is going to be a killer for teams. Like on that touchdown, he had like a fake post to like a fade and just was wide open, completely caught the corner leaning. So, yeah, I think just overall the offense is going to be easily the strength of the team. Defense, obviously, we can get into real quick. But yeah.
Yeah, I think let's go into defense, and then we'll kind of go into the weaknesses and kind of what hurt the Buffs. But for defense, I mean, we talked about them a lot earlier. It's kind of just about finding that consistency in my eyes, because it seems like they have the guys that can make those plays. I mean, you look at Trevor Woods and that interception that he had. I thought that was a poor read by Morris, but I mean, that was an athletic play. Woods was in the right place. He was able to make that huge play in the first quarter, and every single play that was made by Colorado had an impact on this game. So that was huge. And one thing that I thought was interesting was, despite the lack of consistency, the pass rush, it would get to Morris, but Morris just it kept extending plays. It seemed like CU was just a step behind Morris at all times and couldn't bring him down. I mean, they didn't bring him down, and I mean, Morris had to throw the ball away a few times, but he was able to extend those plays and get completions, scramble a few times. His longest rush was for 19 yards. He ran for 30 yards on 5 attempts, and it had that touchdown that fooled everybody on that play option. So
I think that was the 19-yard run.
Yeah, that must have been. So I was just kind of wondering what you thought as far as the pass rush and kind of some of the areas that the defense might be able to tighten up on.
Well, yeah, I think it's good that Deion mentioned the fact that defense is what we need to work on, because it definitely was, and I think it'll be I think next week will be a different type of game against a team like Nebraska, where it's not as offensively based. So I think defensive scheme, I saw a lot of single high, and kind of there were times where we really brought the heat pressure wise, but it wasn't really able to get there, which is a little bit concerning. But I mean, our defensive coordinator used to be at Alabama. I think that there's enough said there to at least have some decent promise about how he can scheme. Obviously, Alabama, they adjust a lot. We gave up 42 points today. So I think a lot of it will be how the scheme changes into maybe relying less on pressure, sending a lot of pressure, and kind of changing around the personnel on the defensive line.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that goes hand in hand with just playing together and kind of understanding how different players mesh with each other, how the coaches connect with one another, and all that good stuff. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of everything about this game. I mean, I guess, yeah, the last thing to kind of comment on is the special teams. That blocked field goal was definitely...
We don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to go into that. Special teams was pretty butt, I will say.
Yeah.
There was a crucial made field goal. Obviously, was the difference at the end of the first half. We could mention that instead of captains, they have dogs and leaders. One of the dogs is Jace Feely, the kicker, and he made a pretty big field goal. It was good for his confidence, especially after the first one, which was from the same distance, was blocked. So that's about all I really got on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that blocked field goal. It was late in the play clock, and Jace Feely just seemed like he was not ready to kick that ball at that time, and he was flat-footed, leaning back a little bit. They touched on it in the broadcast, but I felt like I immediately saw that. It was like, okay, like no wonder it kind of ended up how it ended up. And then you look at the kickoff team, and they had that kick that ended up out of bounds, so TCU started on the 35. That was earlier in the game, and of course the 88-yard return that set up the touchdown. That was huge. So there were those plays, but I mean, you look at our punter. He had some great punts.
He had one punt the whole game. That's how good our offense was.
Oh, I thought he had two.
Maybe he had two.
We
had one from our end zone that was pretty good too.
Yeah, and that was a good
two.
Punt.
But it's the other one.
His name. I think his last name is Bassett.
It was Mark Bassett, I think.
Yeah, Mark Bassett. He had that coffin corner punt that you mentioned. So there were definitely some bright spots, And, I feel like you can't even get mad really at the 88-yard return because, like, I don't know, if you're going to score that many times in a game, you're going to be kicking off a lot.
Right,
so
right.
I guess eventually it's going to break through.
Yeah,
So.
special teams is a lot about communication also, and just like I feel like a lot of our issues stem from maybe not as much communication. Not everyone has been together that long, and I feel like those were the little parts of the game, or maybe obviously communication isn't a little part, but it was a part of the game where you kind of saw the inexperience of the team together translate. Well, thankfully it was only in special teams and stuff that didn't really obviously we won. So
yeah,
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And once we can, it was a win, but I think the best type of win for a coach is like an ugly win, a really close win where a lot of stuff went wrong and there's a lot of stuff you can improve at. So I think this is pretty much the best case scenario.
Yeah, no, I thought so. I mean,
definitely Tay could have gone because now the hill's all crazy.
Yeah. I commented in the preview that they would have to play excellent football, maybe even their best football of the season, and I thought they did so. Hopefully, this isn't the best football of the season. Hopefully, there's better to come.
We got to play USC.
If this is what we see for the rest of the season, the program's in good hands, the future's in good hands, and so I think we only have a few minutes left before we reach this hour mark. So I guess let's talk about Nebraska a little bit, touch on other sports, and wrap this thing up.
Two more things. I can only imagine what the score will be of the USC game if the defense is like that and the offense is still like that. 'Cause it could end up being like 70-64 or something crazy. And I love the uniforms. Uniforms, perfect. Gold. Reminded me, I'm from New Orleans, big Saints fan. Reminded me of the Saints color rush. They're just beautiful, beautiful jerseys. Yeah. Let's look at the Nebraska game now.
Yeah, no,
we're going on pretty long.
Those are two good topics to touch on. Looking at the Nebraska game coming up next week, I'll be in the press box for that one. Harrison mentioned he'll be down on the field for that. You can't help but just kind of smile because this is a game that you circle on the calendar. The biggest rivals that you'll face all year, even ahead of CSU, and you see their game against Minnesota losing 13-10.
Yeah.
You look at Jeff Sims, 11 of 19 passing, which isn't bad, but he barely threw the ball.
Three picks though.
Yeah, 3 interceptions for only 114 yards. He ran the ball a lot, had 19 carries for 91 yards. Yeah. Nebraska seems to rely on the run game a decent amount. Their offense is kind of interesting, but I think that this will be a great matchup for us because even though their defense held the lesser talented Minnesota squad to only 13 points, and had some decent pass rush, and had success. It seems like CU that won't really matter, as you mentioned. Teams are gonna game plan, but CU has playmakers. They're gonna, TCU knew what they were gonna do in the second half, and CU still was able to go out and capitalize on that.
Yeah, it'll be a different type of game for sure, and I think I would be stunned if we scored 45 again. I think we're gonna have to play a completely different type of style if we want to beat Nebraska because they're they have a different type of culture. Like with the TCU in the Big 12, it's a lot of scoring, a lot of maybe not as much emphasis on the defense, sort of like the Pac-12, but like maybe a little toned down version of that kind of Pac-12 mindset. But Nebraska's a Big 10 team. They got those big old linemen I was talking about. But a lot of the time in today's game, it doesn't really translate. It's kind of an outdated style. Their offense not very, very good all around. Matt Rule, former Carolina Panthers coach, former Baylor coach, is now the head coach there. Not the best way you want to start your reign compared to what Coach Prime happened. Obviously, they had a little bit of back and forth over the summer about like Deion saying he didn't know who Matt Rule was, and I found that pretty funny. But I think their defense is going to be legit, and I think the defense is going to be better than what we saw with TCU, not just because they're better personnel-wise or scheme-wise, but because they're going to actually have a week of film. And it's better than nothing,
Yeah.
I could see us, we could still get into the 30s, I feel like, just because of our speed and our Shedeur is just like, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be days where Shedeur doesn't look as good, but I just fell in love with Shedeur today, at least stylistically, And I think with dealing with Nebraska's offense, I think they're going to have to limit Jeff Sims on the ground, because even though he didn't do well through the air, only 11 for 19 and 3 picks, he had 19 carries, which is, he's going to be running around a lot. They're going to have some design plays, and he had 91 yards. So I think if they focus on containing the pocket a little bit more instead of sending those all-out blitzes through the middle, and kind of working on the outside game, because we saw today with TCU, they kind of had a lot of success when they would run the ball to the outside. So I think working on containing the pocket and containing around outside runs is going to be a big point of emphasis, I think, for the defense heading into this week. But I think offensively, you have to look at it. You have to almost throw the TCU game out of the window. Obviously, when you did well, but in terms of who you're going up against, it's a completely different style. It's Big 10 versus Big 12, which, pretty much the same name as the conference, but it's a completely different style of football. And I feel like, do you want to do predictions? Because I don't know if we're going to have an episode till after that game.
I mean, I'll have my prediction ready for the preview, but if I have to go with an early guess, I mean, I want to keep being a homer, but CU really looked promising today. Yeah. And if I had to go with something, I mean, I'd probably go 31-17.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. I mean, I think Nebraska will find a little bit more success with their offense, with some of the lapses that Colorado's defense seems to have here and there. But I mean, their offense didn't show much promise against the Minnesota defense. I think that will be a big point for Colorado. Hopefully they'll get the ball back a lot more times, force even more turnovers than they did today.
Yeah.
And depending how they respond to that Nebraska defense, even though it looks good, I think Colorado will still be able to capitalize on what they want to do. I think they're still going to bring that heat, still going to bring that intensity, bring that hype, bring that culture. And they said "we coming" about 1 million times in every interview, but yeah, they are.
They follow through.
And
they're here.
Yeah. So yeah, I go 31-17 for next week. My early prediction.
I'd say around that. I'm going with the CU win. I mean, I know Nebraska's probably going to go in with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to go in real motivated after a really, really tough loss to Minnesota, where they kind of blew it at the end. And they're going to go in as it's a rivalry game. Matt Rule's going to keep people fired up. He's a pretty underrated motivator as a head coach, especially at the college level. But and you can't let up now. Like, you have this amazing, climactic win in opening day. You don't want it to go all down the drain if you lose to your biggest rival. And, that would just put a stinker in the whole season. Like, you have to really focus on getting things right, staying mentally sharp, not looking down to your competition thinking, oh, we're so much better than Nebraska, we can just chill and do what we did last game and we'll win. You have to really stay locked in, but I do think they will, because all the doubt that I'll ever have in my head, I feel like will be proved wrong with this team. So I'm going CU, I'd say 27-20 by touchdown.
Yeah. No, I obviously think that's a fair prediction because mine was pretty close, and yeah, I think you touched on some good points about how they need to stay mentally sound, need to stay ready, not look down on any competition quite yet. Not let their egos get too big, but I mean, as I mentioned earlier with Travis and his maturity, I think the team as a whole has a great is very mature. I think their chemistry is coming together well, and I think Deion, even though he's flashy, even though he's a big personality, he seems to be a mature individual. I mean, you look at that Dylan Edwards fumble, and you see Deion talking to Edwards, man to man, face to face, and you can see that's a heartfelt conversation. They wrap it up with a hug, and you see Dylan come back, and I think he only had 2 touchdowns at that point. Come back, score 2 more touchdowns. finish out the game, playing just as well as he did before the fumble, and I think that whole dynamic will is what makes Colorado a different team and what surprised a lot of people.
And you saw a lot of emotional maturity at the end as well when they won. Deion hugged one of his assistant coaches after that fourth down stop, which basically wrapped up the win. So I think that's really big.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. I'm ready to see more of this team play already.
Yeah. No, me too. I mean, yeah. I described this to you and pretty much everyone I've talked to about this. But I mean, last night felt like trying to go to sleep on Christmas Eve when I was 8 years old. I mean, that's how excited I was. And after watching this game, I mean, I'm even more excited to just see what this team has in store.
Yeah, indeed.
So
let's go Buffs, baby.
yeah. I mean, I guess, let's wrap it up there. I mean, we covered everything as far as football. I mean, there's even more to talk about just because they produce so much.
Right. I mean, we've gone on so long. I feel like there could be more we could talk about.
Yeah. So.
And we were planning on talking about 3 other sports.
Yeah.
Today.
No, we were planning to talk on basketball, all their transfers, the TBT, everything that's going on there. We were planning to talk about the 2 sports that are going on right now, volleyball and soccer. Volleyball and soccer have both been playing this past week and this weekend. Volleyball plays tonight.
Soccer especially, they've been killing it. They had an amazing last-second winner that we were able to cover greatly on our social media. Amaya Gonzalez with a corner kick to Shira James. It's happened twice in the same game, and one of them was the match winner after we thought we gave up the equalizer with a few minutes before that. So soccer team doing great. Volleyball, pretty sure they haven't lost a set in 3 or 4 games. So a lot of promise right now. Great time to be a sports fan here.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hoping volleyball continues their dominant reigns
they play tonight.
This weekend. Tonight, yeah, like you said, and I think they play tomorrow as well.
Play Charlotte tonight.
Yeah.
Soccer's tomorrow against Purdue, I'm pretty sure, too.
Okay, yeah, so we have soccer, and then, they play Charlotte tonight. They beat Xavier 3-0, swept the set. And so, no, definitely a lot of promise from top to bottom in CU athletics.
Yeah, and I think next week we definitely get into more of those teams, and then basketball especially is going to be coming up. Cody Williams, I'm hyped for him.
Yeah, now Cody Williams, and then you hear about some of the other guys like Hassan Diop. And some of those newer guys, Eddie Lampkin, of course, transferring in. And you just get excited, of course, about all the returners. You look at Tristan Silva, KJ Simpson, all those guys, and you look at the women's side of things.
Oh, women's.
Forget.
They just made the Sweet 16 for the first time in 20 years and got a tournament win. We got Sherrod and Quay coming back. We got some new transfers, one from Michigan that look pretty good. We're looking up. We're up right now.
Yeah, no, CU Sports is in a good place, and so is Scope Up Sports. We've had a ton of new members, a ton of attention. Same thing with the Bold. Please read our articles over there.
Yeah. So much more content is gonna be coming soon. We promise. This is gonna be an amazing year.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the excitement for this club for us is about as big as the excitement for the football team in the future of CU athletics. So yeah, the future is bright. I mean, success is on the horizon. We're already reaching new heights every day. So we hope that you guys are along for the ride. This is only episode 1 of the podcast. We plan to have one every week. Plan to branch out in other podcasts, all social medias. Live show coming next week before the Nebraska game. Live coverage of the Nebraska game. Articles coming up about football, volleyball, soccer. Everything's coming.
Club sports too.
Yeah, club sports.
We're going to be live streaming men's soccer on September 10th. Sunday, the day after the Nebraska game. So we got nonstop content right now.
Yeah, nonstop content. So if you guys are along for the ride, you'll get exclusive CU content from top to bottom. Of course, football and basketball, those big hitters that everyone is talking about from coast to coast and around the world. But even those club teams. I mean, our baseball team made the Club World Series.
Yeah, they got the fall season now. We never covered their fall season last year. They got games in late September. So we're gonna be doing so much this year.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and even during the be involved fair, we had a guy tell us about the ultimate frisbee team, and they actually made the national championship.
Really?
This past year.
Maybe we'll do some ultimate frisbee.
They
Why
played
not?
I think it was the women's team played the North Carolina team from there. They're not known as the Tar Heels and the Buffs. They're something a little different because they're a club team. But yeah, still, I mean, across the board, Colorado Sports is doing fantastic. We have Alex with us helping out. And
Alex, right there behind the camera. He doesn't. Yeah, say hi.
So yeah, but yeah, him and Jared will be doing hockey, of course, be helping out with baseball, all the other sports.
We're so excited. I'm so excited right now.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I can't contain myself.
Yeah, we're coming, baby.
We coming.
The time is here. We coming.
And yeah, that probably about to do it.
Yeah, no, I think
we
it
went
is.
on real long. We have so much content coming on the way. I am really, really excited for this year. Hopefully, we can do a podcast pretty much every week. Our episode should be releasing on around Tuesday. So if you're watching this on Tuesday or anytime near that, just know that we got our first live show in a few days. Obviously, Nebraska coming up. A lot on the way. And I'm Harrison Simeon.
I'm Oliver Hayes. We're here for Skull Buff Sports.
And let's go Buffs.